Welcome to the Leather Journey. I'm Dex. Today we're going to talk a little bit about adult learning theory and then relate that adult learning theory to learning how to throw a bullwhip in the most effective, efficient way and the quickest way, because the goal is to actually be able to play with this in the dungeon. So how do we do that? Well, if we went to a regular whip workshop, whether it be a sport cracking or someone that's teaching basic cracking, they would start you off by learning the cattleman's crack. Easiest crack to learn how to crack the whip, but the whip cracks about 2/3 of the way down the thong. So actually for dungeon play, you're still a foot and a half away from someone. They might teach you the overhand. Okay, the overhand or the overhand flick is actually probably the most useful throw for dungeon play, but we're going to show you how to get there quicker. We're going to relate that to adult learning theory. So to do that, we're going to start with a flogger. Everybody that's interested in leather, whether they be top, bottom, switch, everybody's seen a flogger. Most everybody's felt a flogger. Most everybody's actually thrown a flogger. And a lot of you out there, if you're interested in leather, you own a flogger and have thrown it. So the four most common techniques for throwing a flogger are bringing all the tails together and throwing a bow and arrow. Some people call that a slingshot. Coming off the shoulder, and you can come off either shoulder. Throwing horizontal, or throwing a figure eight. And when we talk about whips, I'm going to call it a forward figure eight, because in sport cracking there's some other figure eights and we don't want to be confused. Okay, so in adult learning theory, learning is additive, okay? And learning a new task, if we can relate it to skills that we already have, is going to increase the time it takes to learn the new task. So if the new task is learning how to throw a bullwhip, I'm going to contend that if we take those four techniques that we use when we throw a flogger, that we have all this practice with, and we relate those to throwing a bullwhip, we're going to get there quicker. Why is that? Because when we pick up a galley whip, which is also a multi-tailed whip, we throw it with a bow and arrow. We come over the shoulder. We can throw it horizontal, and we can throw it in a forward figure eight. All the practice time we've had throwing a flogger and a galley whip is going to relate to throwing a cat o' nine, which only has 9 tails. If you can keep 120 tails together with a flogger, you should be able to keep 9 tails together using these same 4 techniques. But again, all this time we've got throwing, the cat is going to get us to our new learning task quicker. Why is that? Because after a cat, you might throw a quirt, which only has 2 tails. I'm going to throw it the same way. Bow and arrow, over the shoulder, horizontal, or the forward figure eight. Okay. All of that practice we've had is going to go into throwing a dragon tail, and we're going to be able to throw it quicker. We're going to get there quicker because we're going to continue to practice throwing these same 4 techniques. And I contend this is actually a type of single tail because it ends with only 1 tail. Now the traditional single tail in the scene is the signal whip. Okay, am I going to throw the signal any differently? I can throw it as a bow and arrow. I can come off the shoulder. I can throw it horizontally. And I can throw it in a forward figure eight. All that time and practice is going to go into being able to throw a snake in a bullwhip. I recommend people throw a snake for a little bit before they try the bullwhip, but the snake is done the same way. Bow and arrow, off the shoulder. Now when we come to horizontal, you can throw a snake horizontally. I recommend you don't, just because gravity adversely affects the fall in the horizontal plane, but you can definitely throw a snake overhand. And that's actually the preferred method of throwing it dynamically, is overhand. Okay, so that's got us there. Our journey is complete. All of that practice, and now we have our bullwhip. And what happens? You can throw a bullwhip horizontally, but I'm going to say the same thing I said with this snake. Gravity adversely affects the fall, and I recommend that the bullwhip is thrown more efficiently and more accurately overhand. But see how quickly we got there? We got there because we related it to what we know about how adults learn. How adults learn quicker and how adults learn best is by relating the new learning task to skills that we already have. And almost everybody has Flogger skills. So it's almost like driving a car. Everybody has a driver's license, but we want everybody to be able to fly the plane. But we're going to relate flying the plane to as much as we can about driving a car so that we can learn to fly the plane quicker than if we just jumped in and learned to fly a plane before we ever knew how to fly to drive the car. As always, thanks for watching to the end. Remember, subscribe, ring the bell, and watch the next video on the leather journey.